So in front of me is Benelli TRK 502 aka Nandi. We both have completed together on the saddle 20,000 kilometers in under 1 year. So this is the 20,000 kilometer as well as the 1 year review of my bike. I thought it is the best time to post it because now I have a complete experience of owning this bike for the previous 1 year, and I have also had the experience of going on various kind of terrains, be it on the road, be it on the hills of Himalayas. There have been various kinds of experiences I've had, including an accident on this bike. So I think I am the right person now to give you a proper 20,000 kilometer review on this bike. There might be quite a lot of you who's still sitting on the fence thinking, should you buy this bike first hand? Should you go to the second hand market and pick it up? Well, then this review is for you. I'm going to bring out all the positives, all the negatives of this bike, and therefore you can be a judge for yourself. Just a point in case, this is the only bike that I own in my garage now. So this is both my long distance tourer as well as my daily driver to my office. Let's just have a look at the odo so that we know how much kilometers have been done as on date. So at 20,159 kilometers, it is pretty apparent that I have done the required 20,000 kilometers. Today is the 10th of the August and it was 5th of the August previous year when I bought this bike. So let's get on with the goods of this bike. Thereafter I'll be speaking about the negatives of it. The first good about this bike is definitely the way it appears. If appearance is something that appeals to you, then I think this bike will definitely be on your hit list. I have stopped at various places to have a tea, coffee during my long rides, and at every point in time, there have been people who just swarmed towards me and had a lot of questions to ask about this bike. Because very simple, they do not understand bikes, but they do understand how good looking a bike is. It kind of makes me feel good as an owner of this bike when I sit on it, because of him, I am enjoying, honestly, all the accolades. So appearance, definitely after a year there has been nothing much has happened to this bike. There has been no component failure, no tearing of the seats, no damages to anything just because of normal wear and tear, still continuing to remain as good and excellent as it had come out of the showroom. The second point which I would like to bring out is the quality of the components of this bike. So on the night of the 17th and 18th of April 23, I met with an accident outside Banaras. I hit a dead cow, climbed over the dead cow. Thereafter, when the bike became unstable, I fell from the bike, and thereafter the bike fell on the road and dragged for 50 to 60 meters. So you can imagine, if any other bike in this condition would have been there would have been extensive damage to the bike. Look at the way this bike has been designed. Just because of this lower crash guard, which is there custom fitted by the company, all the weight of the motorcycle came on that crash guard. And because this crash bar bag was projecting a little bit outside, it suffered a bit amount of damages. That is all this bike suffered as damages. Definitely when I fell over, the lower brake lever also bent, so that had to be replaced when I had finished my ride. Apart from that, zero damages to the entire bike, not even a scratch apart from these. I actually at that point imagined maybe if any other bike would have been there, the first component to fail would have been the fork. A slight bend to the fork would have meant multiple amount of monies to be spent on getting it repaired. Maybe the cone set would have got damaged. Even the least that would have happened is a bend on the rim. Nothing happened actually. The very first thing I inspected after the damage was, did I have a puncture? And I was actually surprised. I literally picked up my bike, got onto it and went to a hospital and got myself checked. Nothing actually happened to the bike, and the rest 2 days I was just trying to investigate if there is any problem with it. Thereafter the service center, again, no issues were found. So full marks actually again to the way the bike has been designed. It is very apparent that a lot of thought and brains have gone into getting this bike designed. This is an adventure tourer, so it is expected to take hits, it is expected to fall in ditches. Everything is expected out of it while it remains in its touring configuration. So therefore, full marks to its way the bike has been designed. Now let's get on to the point number 3 of its good. The point number 3 which I experienced good is the exceptionally good performance of this motorcycle. This bike is only a 500cc and it pulls along around 300 to 315 kilograms of weight when it's on a touring setup. That includes 20 kilometers of your fuel as well as you sitting there, and there are a lot of luggages around you. In spite of all that, it does a very decent performance, and it has sustained speeds of 120 km/h on Indian highways for an extensive period of time. Nearly 2 to 3 hours I could continue maintaining the average speeds of 100 to 120. You can sit on that seat, which is a very comfortable seat. I said that before in my first review. The I button should be there somewhere around here. And I told that this is not a seat, this is a sofa. I have not even done even a bit of change to the seat which is there. You can sit on that seat, you get a slightly sportish posture for your right triangle, if you can get adjusted to that, and then you can tour entire 24 or 48 hours on that saddle. Yes, 24 hours. I did my saddle so 24 hours, no problem in the performance. Did a non-stop 48 hours from Cochin to Banaras, and thereafter my return leg from Nepal, from Ayodhya to Hyderabad, overnight journey, another 24 hours, no problem at all in this bike. All this thing happened in the heat wave period of April 2024. So that's something which you need to know, that in spite of all the adverse conditions which were thrust against this bike at the time of its long distance touring, nothing at any point in time this bike ever created any trouble for me. I was expecting to see some sensors going off, some alarms coming in. Nothing happened, and I'm actually surprised how could a bike of this kind survive this amount of what you call adversities against it. You may also note that this bike gives me a mileage of 26 kilometers per liter in highways, and if I am doing my daily driving between my home and my work, then this bike gives me an average mileage of around 20 kilometers per liter. So therefore a mileage of 26 or 20 would be something I would consider very decent for this bike. Remember, it's a heavy motorcycle, it's not a light one. Therefore this kind of a mileage for a heavy tourer should be called decent, and therefore you need not worry much about the mileage part of it when you are using it on the long tours. Point number 4 would definitely be the quality of the components, which I had also previously highlighted in my 10,000 kilometers review. The quality of all the parts on this bike, whichever are there, are still functioning good. There have been multiple rounds of dirt and rainwater and slushy water which have all gone into it, and at some point in time I thought that they might fail. It did fail once with my fog light setup which was there. That button was not working, but a bit of WD-40 and or some other spray which was used by the service center, and then the button has been brought back into the use. So the switch is functioning pretty well, there is no problem with it. And also the designers have realized that this is a touring bike, so they have given you a decently huge windshield, or what you will call a visor. So the front knuckle guards which have been given, they are also of pretty good quality, even though this has replaced post the accident. In spite of that, this has also functioned very well. The crash guards are excellent. There has been no damage to chassis in spite of an accident. The chain sprocket, I like to highlight, is still in its stock condition at 20,000 kilometers. This could have been changed actually somewhere at the 10 or the 15,000 kilometers in any other bike. It's still holding on good. So it still runs at 20,000 kilometers. Great job. Also, the company has given you the saddle stays, which many other brands would not give you. These are all custom fitted, readily designed and given to you. The clutch, the brake are all decent. I wouldn't say they are exceptionally good, but the front brakes are spot on. The rear brake pads were changed at around 18,000 kilometers because I felt the bite was less. Yet at that point in time, the brake pads had around 50% more life left to it. Still, I decided to go ahead and change it for my own satisfaction. I did that. Still continues to hold good. There is no problem with the rear brake. The braking might not feel very instantaneous, very catchy. The reason is a heavy bike, so you might not get an immediate deacceleration, but eventually when you use this bike for some time, you will get used to the stopping distances and the stopping power of the brakes. They also given you a decent luggage rack below, so you can always mount your top cases to it. So the mirrors are good. The visor, I already told it, is an exceptional. They also given you a GPS stand or a mount wherein you can mount your infotainment system or whatever you want to call that as. So everything. And also I have recently added a battery meter to it so that I get to know if there is any drop in the battery voltage when I'm using my fog lamps. So a lot of things the company has given, they're all good. You can actually put in 2 sets of fog lamps, and dedicated switches also have been given here and there. So these are the great things which this company has done to this bike, given you a good mileage, given you a good product, a sturdy machine, performing engine which does not undergo any kind of lack of performance or a dip in performance at any point in time. Take it to the Thar deserts, the hot summer time, take it to the Himalayas in the cold winters. This bike will just perform. It is designed to do all that kind of adventure which you want to get this bike to be doing it. So there is no problem, absolutely okay. Everything has been perfect with it. So then what are the issues with this bike? So without wasting time, jumping into the issues now. So the major issue I found with this bike, starting with the frontal side, is definitely its front headlamps, Both these headlamps were given to me with halogen setup. The shape of the reflectors inside is such that you do not get a good throw forward. Now a machine doing a speeds of 80-90 on the highways at night does not have good headlamps. You are of course dependent on your both your fog lamps in such a scenario. Now I recently changed into LED bulbs. I am still not very much satisfied with the output of both the lights. And please don't mind, I have already installed a protector, so there may be a reason that I don't get enough throw. But then I checked with a lot of the other TRK owners in India, and they all had the same opinion, and they have recommended to go with fog lamps as the only solution to this issue. There's one such problem on which nothing can be done from the owner's side. The second problem I did find is with the visor which is there. Excellent visor, tall visor, it's all good. But for some reason, I am 5'8" in height, so when I sit on the saddle and I'm sitting up that position, the wind for some reason comes and hits me on the helmet on the top. And it is okay if you're doing an hour or two of ride, but if you're sitting on that saddle and doing some 24 hours of ride non-stop, that becomes a major issue. So I had to go with an extender. Aspect extender is doing an excellent job. It is just deflecting all the wind out away from me. Now because of this kind of visor which I have, I do feel that sometimes I'm sitting on the saddle and I am experiencing something what a driver experiences sitting inside a car. There's hardly any wind which comes towards you. So when in the hot months I was riding this bike, there were many times in which I did feel I should have removed the visor and got some wind coming onto me and drying me up. All the sweat were all just piling up on my chest. And this visor is so well built, it is so beautiful that nothing called even a bit of wind would ever come and hit you. All that wind would just go from the sides, from the either side, and something from the top, and you are literally sitting behind a wall. So the visor in its design is doing its job exceptionally well. For some reason, I as a rider am not feeling very comfortable with its design. The point number 3 which I want to highlight is definitely the console of this bike. It is a pretty archaic, ancient design. It's got a analog RPM meter, and you got a very simple design of speeds, the time, the fuel indicators and everything. It's a pretty archaic design. Today's you have a lot of digital displays which have come into the market by various brands. So those things is something which Benelli could have done a bit to help with the owners of this bike. They could have given a better display. Anyhow, you could definitely source it from China or some elsewhere like Malaysia. That would cost you 50,000 Indian rupees, and I don't find that to be a valuable upgrade to this bike. Another issue is the red lighting which is there. In a daytime, if I had shown you this wouldn't have been that apparent, but this red lighting even after a year continues to be an annoying experience. I'm not very happy with it. So I wish it would have been a different color. Again, you can't do nothing about it. Another major issue with this is the fuel indicator. I don't know, it shows that there is half tank fuel, but in reality there is around 13 or 14 liters of fuel inside my tank. So this is always an erroneous indication. So please do not rely on this fuel meter if you ever having this bike. So the moment it drops to the single bar, it is time to start fueling up this motorcycle. And since this is a fuel injector system, please do not at any point in time go down to that level that your fuel injection system fails. Well, the point number 4 of this bike, which is its negative, is its electrical system. Its wiring, its electrical system is its another nemesis. It has got a decent ECU of Bosch brand. It has got an exceptionally good wiring to make it work in its stock condition. But if you ever decide to put something onto this bike like 2 fog lamps, or you want to put a GPS display like me, or since you are a long distance tourer, you might be thinking, why not I put an extra USB type C or type A charger, a fast charger like this? That is when you are going to face a major issue with the electrical system of this bike. When you install all these products, this bike suddenly becomes unstable. It is like struggling to deliver its performance at the electrical end. Therefore, I had to put that battery meter which I had already highlighted, just to know when I am going or I am extracting too much of energy out of these batteries. You'll have to take it to a very good super bike electrical mechanic, give him the bike, give the guy the description of what are the items you want to do, and trust him to do his job properly if you ever find one. I was lucky to find one. Therefore all these things have been fitted on this bike and I am not facing any issues presently. But there were times that I did face issues with the electrical performance of this bike. Some of the issues I already put it on the channel, and maybe you could go there and have a look at how I fiddled around with the spark plugs of this bike and literally got my ignition coils burned off. So this bike is pretty sensitive. It is like a healthy child from outside, but from internally, medically, he is a little weak. So please, when you buy this bike, or if you ever plan to own it, remember this point. Do not keep adding electrical components to it like fog lamps, switches or displays without proper guidance. Point number 5 is generally told as the major negative of this bike, and which is its weight. Yes, the weight of this bike is its negative, big negative, unless you know how to tame it. The weight of this bike is slightly concentrated to the top side because you have a 20-liter tank which sits at nearly about a meter from the ground. So that is a big issue. If you are not used to handling a tallish motorcycle with a high center of gravity, it's very obvious that you are going to fall far too frequent, especially when you are trying to take a U-turn or something like that, or you're trying to do an off-road patch. If you are not somebody of that caliber, please do not buy this bike, or else please go get your skills upgraded, or else buy this bike and start getting upskilled. Remember, I use this bike to negotiate peak traffics when I go to my office and come back from that place back to my home. In spite of the way it is designed, I handle it like a charm. That's because I've started getting upskilled since I bought this bike, and today I am pretty confident of taking it solo across the Himalayas, climb up and down. I don't have any issue with it. It is very difficult to pull this motorcycle back with just your two legs, as many bikers would otherwise do with their bike. Well, point number 6 is a peculiar issue, and which is this. The bike has nothing called as protectors right above its rear wheel. So whenever your rainwater comes from down below and hits on the tire hugger, most of it would slip off back to the ground, but a lot of mud comes and gets deposited out here. I just got the bike cleaned and serviced, so you can't see much of it, but there have been times there have been so much of mud that becomes an irritant. All the mud is concentrated around here in this rainy weather in which I am riding these days. Point to be noted, however this bike has been designed, nothing ever comes and falls on your leg. I use a light colored clothing when I go to my office. I always imagine my legs getting dirty. That has never happened for some reason. So from the front side, the design is good in this aspect. From the rear side, the design is slightly messed up, I would say. So many good things, yet there are so many wrong things with this bike. Yet this bike has become an utter failure in Indian markets. There have been very few daredevils who pick up this bike and have been their proud owners, whilst most of them have either rejected this bike and omitted it even from their want list. So what is the reason that this bike finally got rejected? All the pluses and the negatives I discussed so far are pretty much known to everybody who has bought this bike. But what is the actual real deal breaker? Why was this bike rejected by the Indian crowd? And that is the last point which I want to bring out. Well, the deal breaker of this motorcycle is the company or the environment which runs it. There are problems with the brand Benelli, and therefore it has always had a dubious distinction. It was initially run by the DSK group, now by Mahavir Auto. The DSK group for some reason were very passionate about this bike, so they brought in this bike to India. But since then, the new company which took over hasn't brought much of the Benelli bikes to India. They are definitely promoting many of the Chinese models of the same company, the parent company QJ Group, but not Benelli motorcycles. The company actually has a policy of getting this motorcycle serviced every 6 months or 6,000 kilometers. And the price of one service comes around 8,500 to 10,500 range. So that it's a little too high for this bike is what is my appreciation. The problem is not the price tag of the servicing, it is the humongous cost of labor involved in doing the very basic works of oil change, cleaning the tire, doing some air filter replacement or oil filter. Very basic works which are done cost you a whooping 3,500 to 4,000 rupees just to go and get it done. Now that is not very comfortable for many of us. Even as an owner now, I have made peace with it, so I am okay with it, but may not be for many people who tend to own this bike. Second point in that is the luck in finding a very good service center close to your home. I am lucky to have a service center in Kochi just 4 kilometers away. I have any small niggling issues, I reach there, they help me out. Good people out there, very friendly. I don't have a problem with this bike. This may not be the case with many people in India who live in far-flung areas, small towns. You might not find a service center close to your home. So what would you do then? Definitely, you wouldn't choose this motorcycle in the first place. This is the problem the bike company needs to address in India, of opening many service centers as much as possible close to your home, bring it down to the small towns, expand it on the highways, so that when people go on their long tours, they find an issue, they can go into a Benelli showroom and get the thing serviced. Case an example is Triumph. They are just expanding. Benelli doesn't expand much. That is the problem with the service chain network, which nobody can help with this bike for the time being. Another major issue with this bike and their service centers is the kind of technicians who are there in addressing the problems with this bike. So since I bought this bike in Kochi, the service center has already had its technicians been replaced, new fellows who are still learning the trade on this bike. So when I bring this bike to the service center, I am not very confident now the servicing is going to be done very professionally, because this bike is in need of professional touch. I just hope that this problem is also addressed by the company, that they do not frequently change or they do not let go of their employees as frequently as it is happening right now. Another big issue with this bike is its pricing. Coming at a price tag of nearly 6 lakhs ex showroom, it is definitely out of budget for most Indians. Machine that does not cost anything more than 4 lakhs or 5 lakhs. That is kind of the upper limit you have for any motorcycle that you would own. So when it goes to the 6 lakh bracket, it is again way out of the first hand purchasing power of many Indians. So what do they do? This bike has a great demand in the second hand market. Put this bike for sale and quote a price tag of 4.5 or 5 lakhs, you will find many people coming and ready to buy this bike. So if the pricing was done properly on this bike by the company, there would have been much more sales, and if you see much more sales, then you can have a lot of service centers and spare support and everything. Coming to the another major issue with the dealerships is the spare support. The spares of this bike, I wouldn't say are cheap, neither they are exponentially costly. They are okay. Case an example, the chain sprocket due for replacement would cost me 25,000 Indian rupees. That is something too high. But many of the other components which got replaced during my accident are decently priced. I wouldn't say they are costly, they are cheap. They're okay, they're fine. But there are some components that are exponentially expensive. The problem is there is some issue with the supply of the spares to the dealerships at the service centers from the mother company which is there in Hyderabad. Now I don't know what needs to be done on this regard. There's nothing much we can do about it. Hopefully the company sorts out all these logistic and managerial issues and therefore serve the customers better. There was a case which I recently witnessed here in the Benelli Cochin service center. The bike was standing for nearly 3.5-4 months. That is the problem with this bike, that if the spare support is not available, then the bike is literally put down for 3.5 to 4 months. Imagine somebody buying an expensive bike like this, and that is his only bike. And if there is an issue with the bike, you met with an accident, the component is damaged, something is there, spares are not there, the vehicle will be put down for a very long period of time. And therefore, this is the reason that many think, why do we have to even go for this motorcycle? Even if it is good, if it looks good, performs excellently, gives you all the best legendary feeling a money motorcycle could probably give you at that price range. Still, these are the issues which make people take their steps backwards. These are not small niggling issues. So these are major issues which comes only when you tend to own a motorcycle, when you have to live with this motorcycle for an extended period of time. As far as I am concerned, I have lived with it. I have made peace with the problems. So I am going to take this motorcycle beyond 5 years of ownership. I do not tend to sell this motorcycle, but I am not sure about the world which is out there. Many would find that this bike is a little too much for them. First of all, it is very overpowering. It looks huge. It looks emphatic. At the same time, all the back-end issues of service support, spare support, all comes like a package to haunt the quality of this motorcycle. If these things can be addressed, then there is no bike which can even stand next to it. There is only one competitor in its CC category, and that would be NX500. I have done its review and I will put it somewhere up there. That bike in no way compares even closely to it. The only way the Jap bikes can pitch themselves up is for the sake of reliability. So that's it, guys. That's pretty much all the bads and the goods are there about this motorcycle. I hope I could cover all the points that I had assimilated in my mind since the last 1 year. This bike is a phenomenal motorcycle. It does come with its fair share of negatives as well. There is no motorcycle in this world which is designed perfectly for your use. Please do remember that. But whenever you buy any motorcycle, you will have to learn to live with it and make the necessary adjustment. Maybe upskill yourself and become a better motorcyclist. This is truly a legend, and this is going to remain with me for many years from now. If you ever plan to buy this motorcycle, do reach out to me on the comment section. Ask me whatever doubts you have, and I'd be more than happy to address every single query which you have about the Benelli TRK 502. I've had fair share of experience interacting with the company personnel, so I have an idea about what is the problem that they are facing from their side as well. So stay tuned. There are many videos coming up on this channel of my adventure with Nandi. We are going to explore Cochin and the towns around Cochin and the hills in Kerala in this monsoon season. Ciao and have a great night.